So we met at Stella's, I think, a couple years ago, just at a bar for those who don't know it. And you showed me some of your paintings and everything, and we got to know each other a little bit. And you've been doing pretty insane work. Like a lot of the stuff you do is very like, I don't know, almost out of a different era. Like I don't see it, or it's not something that I personally like come across that often. And I was just completely blown away with your level of talent with it. And then as we got to know each other, like seeing the studio and just finding out like how into it you are and what you're doing, and like your body of work has been pretty impressive. So kind of start from the beginning, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I can't even really remember when I got actually interested in art. Like when I was really young, I like doodled, but I never was really interested and like thought that it was a viable thing to do all the time. I mean, I had other hobbies. I really like video games, and but I think when I took my first painting class, like I found that I do just have the ability to kind of paint. Even though I lacked like technical skill, I was able to look at things in a way that I could translate it. But I don't think it was until I took my first art history class, a real art history class in college, that I realized like the human impact of painting and the value that it has isn't really derived just from like how it looks as an image. It's not about like the picture. I mean, it is about the picture, but the image has more to it than just the stimuli that it gives off. I started to go for art shows with this guy. His name was Levni, Karajabe Levni Sinanolu. And I think every time we went and did something, I got a little more interested. I was like, wait a minute, like this is real. Like I could go to a gallery and like look at stuff that people make and talk to them, and people invest in it, and it's like these big events. And I don't know, and then I just kind of continued to paint from there and painted on my own. And
So did you start with primarily like things that you would see in your head, or did you start sort of painting objects like still lifes and the stuff they kind of teach you in art school? Like,
I mean, it started with like still lifes and stuff. Even now, most of my paintings come from, I mean, pretty much all of them have references in some form or another. Because in school, most of it was like traditional French painting and trompe l'oeils, and which I mean, I was all about too. Like some kids in school didn't want to do any of it. They're like, I'm an artist, I don't want to have to paint a bottle of water, you know? But then being able to paint the bottle of water like really hones in like the technical skill to the point where now you can apply that to painting something creative. Like once you have the technical background and ability to understand perspective and stuff, and then using that. Yeah, because I don't really make any abstract things really. Like I guess some of them are abstracted. They're like,
you do have some abstract elements, like the stuff I've seen recently is it seems like you mix in multi-mediums and different like aspects, texture, gold leaf, know.
I've been getting kind of weird lately. Like well, I don't really want to be a purist painter. Like a lot of people get their little niches and they'll be like, I'm an oil painter who paints bouquets of flowers, and it's just like that's what they're able to do, and that's what they built their career around. Where like I think it's really cool to be able to utilize other stuff. Really, whatever tool I need to make the painting that I want to make it. This is my first thing I want to make with epoxy resin, like a 2-part epoxy, and I never really, I mean, I've thought about it. Like I've always imagined things that I would want to do if I had the resources or like the space, and like of course I would love to build a skyscraper that looked all crazy, like, but I mean, instead I'm right now within my ability is making paintings. So I'm pretty sure in my first painting class, like the first rule in the studio is no food and no drinks in the studio, because all this stuff's super toxic. Literally just started, so it looks kind of crazy. I didn't really treat the canvas much in advance, but so I drew it in, and I did do a really quick spray of a fixative, so that way the pencil doesn't like smear around when I try to do this. Because I think the first thing I'm going to do is give it a wash. And well, so remember. So hopefully it comes out cool, because I've never actually washed over this specific fixative. And it's been really cool. I've kind of I used to like try to get it really smooth, but then lately I've noticed that it like bleeds. And so you'll see these strokes, like if you time lapse it, you'll see it like bleed and like self-level. Honestly, this is kind of part of the reason painting takes so long. It's because like I won't really want to paint over this until a lot of the turpentine like evaporates. Yeah, so I'm kind of just gonna let it like sit for a second. Let some of those mineral spirits evaporate. Because really like thin paint sticks on top of thick paint. So a lot of times like if you paint a little thicker on the bottom, then you can work on top of it without it getting too like mushed together. But I kind of prefer to just let something dry completely and then go back over it. And at certain points, it depends if I'm like blending or not. I mean, layers of translucency. But you see this? You see how it's bleeding? I've kind of fallen in love with that like effect a little bit.
Is there a particular message or anything that you go with, or sometimes there is, sometimes there isn't? Is it sometimes just like this would be cool, or do you have something to say in most of your paintings?
I think it's really both. Sometimes I'm more interested in capturing the technical thing, like executing something in a technical way, like to see if it functions, like if I can take that as a challenge. But then sometimes, I mean, it's kind of a balance, like being able to balance balancing coming up with something technical and cool that's complicated that also is visually interesting and says something more than just the technical challenge of it. Because I mean, if I were to just do something super technical, I mean, it could be appreciated for that, but it's also got to be more than that. Like I want it to be interesting.
So you do seem to have like a good like fundamental basis in like the technical aspects though. Like you've studied art history and you seem to like have an appreciation and knowledge of that, which is funny because when I went to art school and ended up dropping out, I just like the art history stuff was, it was like I just, not that I didn't get it, I just didn't care. You know what I mean?
Well, for me, the art history stuff is like the coolest part of it.
Okay, yeah.
Like honestly, I kind of have more interest in that than even my own paintings. Because over the course of history, people have made so many like amazing, there's like crazy things I never would have been able to dream of make, and it's almost like a catalog and like a documentation of our like humanity, like, and you can look at something and know where it's from and like what the world was at the time that it was made, and I think that's the interesting part. It's kind of like why I paint, is because like eventually someone will have it and be like, look at this thing from 200 years ago. Like, and trying to be able to guess like what circumstances were around the creation of the piece of art.
Yeah, it's I kind of wish I had an art history teacher with more, I don't know, maybe it's like, you know, the most interesting things are wasted on like undeveloped minds, you know?
Yeah.
Just like, I didn't, you know, when I was younger, I just didn't have the appreciation, but you're totally right. Like it is this sort of cataloging of human experience and not only but it's, I mean, yeah, human experience in a way that's not just like literal history. It's like, it's how it felt to be alive during that time.
Yeah, it's like a representation of the people and like all the experiences that they had and like what they were thinking and like the world that they lived in, and it pretty much captures all of that. Even if it's just like a painting of a square, you know, or something like Joseph Albers' paintings that are just like color theory and squares, but they show like how he kind of hypothesized and worked with color theory, and it represents more than just with the images itself. And I don't know, I think it's interesting like that.
So that'd be like the modern art kind of thing. People always make fun of modern art, right? Like you just hanging a spoon on the wall or something like that. I mean, I'm sure there's a level where it gets to be like, okay.
Well, I like modern art too. Like some of it is very interesting and some of it isn't really interesting. I guess it depends on what I don't really like to think of art as an asset class. Like, even though it is, like, and you have classical paintings that are worth $20 million being traded as an investment opportunity. But then when you have things that are just like spoons, a spoon taped to the wall or something that, like, where does the value come from? Like, I know the value with a lot of historical art comes from how it's documented human experience and what it had contributed to human experience at the time. But like, I don't know what the value like when you get into millions of dollars for something like modern art, like that banana taped to the wall, I think.
Yeah, that's what it was. The banana.
The banana is $120,000, I think it was sold, and it's been eaten like 3 times or 4 times already. But I think it's interesting though, like it's being able to like give people stimuli, something that they wouldn't have experienced before. And,
yeah. I wonder if they sell, like, do they get the wall, like a piece of the wall? Like, do you have to remove the tape? Like, how do you even sell that?
I think for that as part of the contract that they have to replace the banana. Yeah, like
so the banana doesn't even matter.
It's not like every 4 days or something.
So it's not even the same banana.
No.
I feel like the banana rotting on the wall would be more
that would
more
be
interesting than just, you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, it's part of the contract for the art that like if you own it, you have to like keep the banana fresh.
That's
like, for the rest of the time you have it.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
So are there any, is there like a particular time period in art history or like a specific sculptors, painters, or mediums, or anything that you are sort of drawn to specifically?
It's tough. I mean, when modern art, even like contemporary art, I think I really like Damien Hirst, which, I mean, I wouldn't describe anything I do to be Hirst-like in any way, and he's very similar, like the modern art stuff we were just talking about. Like, I think one time he had a gallery event, and he just turned the whole gallery into a pharmacy. And so people came to like go to this art show, and they go inside and it's literally just a pharmacy with all these, like all fully stocked, all the drugs like, and all that stuff like that.
Band-Aids.
But like the pharmacy was his exhibit.
Yeah.
But then he's done the wild stuff with like the dot paintings, and there's the big round one that's made of all the dead flies. And so he's probably the coolest modern painter that I like. For sculpture, I really like Baroque sculptures. Like the one I told you earlier, like Gian Lorenzo Bernini, like made the craziest, I can't even begin. Yeah, we were talking earlier about like how wild it is that they had the resources and the ability to make these things, and like massive slates of marble pulled out from the ground by slaves and carried 1,000 miles to be carved by a 17-year-old that was conscripted by the church. It's cool.
And he would just like, they would just do that, right? They would just live there.
Yeah, they just live there and
do
be
paintings,
like,
right? And
be financed and fed and do this stuff. But they also had like a lot of commissions too. They would like choose. They'd be like, hey, we need a sculpture for our new church somewhere, you know. I mean, art could be really useful. Like, I mean, it could have both a use and not a use. Like, it could just be something pretty on the wall. Like a lot of people just drive down the highway and there's billboards and it's all art, but it doesn't register the same way as, like, if you take a total stranger on the street and show them the Mona Lisa painting, like, it triggers them differently. They think, oh my God, that's valuable, it's the rare thing, like, and I don't know, it's kind of wild how some, like, if art as an application for advertising versus art for the ideas it provides, or art for just the aesthetic, just for design. And
do you find there to be a purity that is lost when you get into things like advertising? You know, obviously graphic design is art, like super talented people, you know, create these things that you just on mailers that you just throw away. Do you think there's sort of a purity lost when you commercialize art, or is it just not, it doesn't, I mean, it is what it is, you know?
I mean, I think it is what it is. I mean, graphic designers, like, yeah. You could totally see even in my own paintings which ones I actually really cared about when I made them, and which ones I either did it because I had to, or I like forced myself to do it when I didn't really feel like it. And I think graphic designers, and there's a ton of crazy talented people that are producing things that just get thrown away and on mailers and stuff, but I'd imagine that they do too have like burner work, like they're just doing a quick thing just to get a job done, versus when they put like a creative passion and try to communicate ideas through what they're doing. I don't really see there as any like degradation of value for that. I mean, at the end of the day, we all need to make money, so.
Yeah, and it's, you know, honestly, I'd rather live in a world that has art in it, even in the form of advertising, over just.
I mean, it'd be cool if you could put like more wild advertising instead of going to like the lowest common denominator.
Right, everything's like a solid color, 3 color block logo now, right? Like you used to have more.
Imagine we could do like wild billboards that were like done by creative artists, people that, like, to communicate messages, not just the commercial side of it. It'd be
right.
Imagine a world like that.
I often think that like we've lost a lot of like our artistic flourish as just a culture. If you look back at, you know, even like this hotel that we're in, which we'll talk about, you know, like, you know, you go to old hotels, you go to buildings that were built a long time ago, especially in New York and Victorian era. Like you go to press the elevator button and there's a metal wrought iron flourished. Somebody made like, but we used to care about that. Like it used to be like just a given, I think, like that it would be nice. Even the stuff we consider high end now is like, it's just cold and square.
I don't know, I kind of like it though, especially with like architecture and being inside of a space. Like I prefer it like cold and flat than ornate, and like I think it gives a different impression and you get like a different feeling from being in a space that's designed to be like very minimal versus designed to have all flourishes and stuff. But I guess then it depends, like if you're talking about like cookie cutter factory structures in art versus art that is intentionally simple, I mean, in architecture, like architecture is an art, I guess.
Yeah.
Any interview questions for me?
How do you like New Haven?
It's cool. It's kind of wild. Like, it's like its own little mini city that I don't know. The downtown is weird because there's so many like college kids and like gentrification all in one spot, and then like a mile in any direction, it's not nearly as nice, and so it's kind of wild. But I think in general, it's super cool being surrounded by all the architecture that like 24/7, which is wild. I don't even know if you can see like over there. Isn't that crazy? This is actually the Yale School of Architecture, which if you ask me is kind of like you said with that stale, flat, sterile stuff. I think it's really cool though, actually. I like the modern stuff. There's a weird contrast. There's so much like modern architecture here and then like early American Gothic weird things. Like look, it's like we're just walking up to a castle right now, just right outside the studio. And then I'm gonna go in there and watch Lord of the Rings or something.
Yeah, this city does have like a uniquely strange sort of half castle, half modern feel. Like
I wonder. I used to know the number. I think it's like 170 or 213 or something buildings that Yale owns, and I mean it is one of the oldest. It's the oldest city in Connecticut. It used to be New Haven Colony before it was even Connecticut, and I mean I don't know much about Yale though. I'm no like Yale graduate, so I don't know what year the school was incorporated or anything. But these buildings have been here for forever and have been graced by many of the most genius people that in whatever field they're doing.
yeah, right. I mean it's easy to like. It's easy to like talk shit about rich people or Yale or like, trust fund kids and stuff. But it's like, you're also dealing with like Nobel Prize winners, people who come here from other countries.
Like people are
who
amazing.
That's why that's why I'm doing these videos.
Yeah.
People are amazing,
People are amazing. And it could be anybody, anywhere, at any time. So I mean, I try not to be like judgmental of people.
Right. And you really don't know what somebody's background is.
Yeah.
Just because somebody wears boat shoes.
Look at me right now. I got my non-slip restaurant shoes I wore since work yesterday. I got like this white shirt. I actually bought this shirt because everybody on Nantucket just wears white linen shirts and shit all the time. And I was like, I need a white linen shirt too. And I was like working on Nantucket. It was wild.
So the studio we're in right now is in the back room of a hotel.
It is.
And it's pretty interesting. You would not expect that to be here, but apparently you've been like more or less living here for the past few months or weeks.
Yeah, so the hotel, it's Graduate Hotels, and they started this residency program, I think, two years ago, maybe 3 years ago. So there's 8 hotels in the country that have little dedicated art spaces in the back. Some of them are actually kind of wild, like some of them the studios are in the lobbies and some are in the back. I got the cool, like Brooklyn-esque back exposed brick, like subtle studio that's kind of out of the way, which I really enjoy. When I submitted the application, they asked for like a statement of intent, and I mean I've never had a dedicated studio space like this, so I figured it'd be, I mean half the intent is to really try to hone in on my workflow, like kind of what I don't know. It's wild being here compared to being in my house. Like I have more liberty and more freedom. And but anyway, the new body of work is based on hospitality. I've worked in restaurants for quite a while, and I think, I mean, it's kind of like this own little bubble where if you've done it, then you have the experience and you know what goes into it. Where if you've only ever like gone out to dinner, you're only ever on the receiving end of what the work is. Like hospitality is like its own wild thing. There's so many different types of people in the world, and being able to serve people to make everybody happy. Like it's not exactly like an exchange of goods, but
Well, it's like you're like the face
yeah,
of the goods.
yeah, I guess.
I'm noticing a lot of themes of like this guy's on like a marionette.
Oh,
You have the faceless waiters, so like kind of a lot of like not being seen, being controlled,
Yeah.
not being appreciated. Is that?
I don't know. I mean, it's definitely something that crosses my mind. I mean, most people are really appreciative, but at the end of the day, I mean, like servers, like, would we really do this if we didn't have a choice? I'm gonna pull up something on my phone.
Yeah.
Yeah, what did I say? I said, New Haven-based artist Brian Patrick Cleary utilizes a non-traditional approach in pursuit of his artistic passion. Practicing primarily in oil paint, he strives to capture and express his view of the human experience. Brian Patrick's work demonstrates his interest in subtle moments and emotions that are interspersed throughout our lives. His current project with the Sweet Dreams Society focuses on hospitality and the universal experiences of those that provide it. The goal of his project is to highlight hospitality in its truest form and exhibit the moments and emotions that often go unnoticed. Hospitality in its truest form. I guess it's kind of a hard thing to figure out what exactly hospitality is in its truest form. I mean, people just want to have experiences and go about their business, and hospitality, I guess, would be really different depending on what experience you're looking to have.
But it's also sort of your job to like cultivate what they expect that experience to be.
Yeah, I mean, it's literally facilitating people's experiences for them and being able to translate and handle the logistics of what they're looking for. And a lot of times people don't even really know what they want, like because they don't have experience in what it's actually required to make something happen. It's really just having people feel welcome, I guess.
Do you think there's like a dehumanization sort of the people who work in that industry by the public?
I think there can be, but I mean, there's also a lot of respect too under certain circumstances. Like I think it's kind of neat when you go to an event and like the staff is more important. Like they're the ones making it happen. At least the way I see it. Like when I say, I've never worked at like festivals or anything, but if you go to a festival and like the door guy, like all the people doing the tickets and all the infrastructure, people like you taking the videos, like that is also hospitality, like, and you're creating this experience. And I mean, people could be dehumanizing, like even like how people talked about like McDonald's workers, but I guess I don't know where the line is. Like what?
Yeah, dehumanizing might not be the right term. I just mean more of like not recognizing that these are like people who do their own.
Yeah.
Like they're just they're like an object in
Well,
this
people do get
experience.
so disrespectful too. Like they won't even like I work at a restaurant and it's a nice restaurant. People spend a lot of money and it's pretty fancy. And I mean, some people are just genuine and very nice, and some people just don't even want to look at you. Like they don't want to talk to you. Like I'm trying to serve them food and they're like, you walk up to them and they're like, what do you want? Like, why are you? I'm like, what do you want? You know what I mean? Like, why are you here? I'm the one with the stuff. You want? I'm gonna get you a martini or not? Yeah, so I'm almost just like staining it. All of it's gonna be invisible. Actually, on that one, that background is actually just like that stained wash that I took off, but it's different. Like this is like a pre-stretched canvas, where that was a panel that I made from scratch from MDF, and so initially it's like a wooden surface, and then you sand it down and you put. I did actually a mix of transparent and white gesso, and then sanded it down, and then put more gesso and sanding it down. Eventually it'll get to the point where it's like a semi-even layer of pigmentation. But then again, I mean, I haven't even decided how I want the painting to look fully. I don't think I'm gonna do like a background. I kind of want to stand alone, like almost like you know the marionettes when they're on stage, and they have like the background is just like curtains or you just see them black and just like the light from the spotlight on them. Like from being on stage. So maybe I'll try to work in some sort of spotlight. I think the light is gonna come maybe from here. There is some sort of weird line in our society of like what service workers we respect and what service workers we don't. I mean, I'm a person who respects everybody most of the time. I mean, unless you're a bad person. I mean, I don't know where that line would be.
I've thought this exact thing, especially about tipping and stuff. And I know there's like debates on tipping culture and, you know, like how, you know, we're paying their wage. Like, obviously, I think everybody should be paid a living wage for what they're doing. I don't think, you know, you should have to rely on people's, you know, but that's a whole other issue. But like, we've somehow as a society come to decide that like only certain professions are worthy of being tipped, you know? So it's like, if you're like bartender, waiter, waitress, you know, like hotel, like cleaning staff and stuff.
Like doorman.
But like Walmart shelf stocker, no tip. Like, you know, anybody working overnight at something, anybody who does anything public facing, you know, that like it's the same amount of work or the same job. Dishwashers, no tip. I just think it's so interesting. Like, how did that come to be? Where like we've just sort of like, it would be weird if people would react to you weirdly if you were like, hey man, here's $20. Like, thanks for keeping.
Yeah, one time I tried to tip a guy at Home Depot for helping me carry wood to my car. You know what I mean? And he was like, oh no, I can't. It's like I can't take it. I'm kind of weird compared to most servers, like, because a lot of restaurant people like expect tips. I do. I mean, I kind of expect tips too, but at the end of the day, I mean, I don't think people have to tip. Like, I'm not a proponent for you have to tip, but I think it is directly correlated to how good and happy you are at the end of it. Because it's not just like you walk up to a counter and you get food and there's so many more moving parts that need to be orchestrated, and it's such a variable that the money is really compensating for the excellent execution of all of the things that are happening at any time. Like,
right. Well, it's also different with that because it's factored into like your wage, and they can reduce the minimum pay. So it's more like reliant on tips to actually make a living.
Yeah. Know? Well, I mean, the minute you give everybody solid wages and no tips, like, what's the incentive to perform at a higher level than just like going to work and like, yeah, here's your drink, man, you know what I mean? Like, especially when people ask for complicated things that you are unreasonable and you have the opportunity to say no. Like, there's so much at work I could just be like, no, I can't do that, you know what I mean? But and then it crosses my mind, oh wait, they're gonna give me $150 at the end of this after 2 hours because they just spent $700 on dinner. And I'm like, they asked me for some wild things. I'm like, oh, yeah, of course, yeah. We'll be right back. I could do that. My first painting teacher, I think it was, or my first teacher when I went to art school, both said the same thing, so I imagine it's pretty important. And they were very adamant on like keeping your colors on your palette in a specific order, which sometimes my palettes get kind of wild. But I try to begin with a specific order, and then I guess as I start to run out of space, I just start to throw pigment in where it fits. But so that way you don't have to like think about where the paint is when you're just in some sort of flow state, and you could just reach, like you could like have your eyes closed and just reach and know like what color like you're going for. I do actually have a whole bunch of other pigments, but these are kind of like my core colors. Like they almost look like little Skittles. So the French ultramarine is a really important color for me, I think, in my palette. That's how I make most of my like blacks and grays, is with this blue. Because they would never let us use black in school either. I mean, because I guess there's no such thing as true black in nature except for that complete void of light. And a lot of the blacks like end up looking unnatural.
Wouldn't there also not be such a thing as white either?
Yeah,
I guess
except,
there's white
I guess like
there is
pure
white in nature though.
Yeah, there is. I mean, I guess there is like black in nature too, but like your irises and like stuff. But when you see the black, it's really in relation to its context. So like a black bird isn't actually truly black because you're catching the light reflected off the sky. There's like blue highlights and then the yellow highlights from the street light or whatever it's flying past. So like it's never actually just black. It's just your brain organizes that information for you to see it as being black. And the same thing goes with white. Like what's the guy, Edward Hopper? And he has like that painting of like the door that opens out over the ocean and there's the white wall next to it. But when you see it in person, it's all colors. It's like blue and green and red and purple, shades of white. But from just like a couple of steps back, it just looks like a white wall. Your brain just imagines it as a white wall. And it kind of takes a little bit of practice to be able to recognize what color things actually are versus what color your brain is lying about it and trying to convince you it is.
So you have a series of paintings for this project here on the
Yeah, working on one.
Like that's,
It's my first time trying to make a cohesive body of work instead of just spontaneously painting whatever I wanted. I feel like over time I have kind of settled into a little bit of a style. I'm still working on that every day, I guess. As I change as a person, my style will change.
like a style within the series,
And not just within the series, but in the art in general.
just what you do.
And But for the series, I mean, it really is the first time of me trying to make a cohesive body of work where all the paintings are correlated to each other and work with each other. Because usually I just make whatever I feel like making at any time. Like we said before, like sometimes it's more like I'm trying to just do something cool and technical to see if I'm able to do it. And sometimes I don't know if it's out of inspiration or I just want to make a thing because I'm feeling some type of way. But I wouldn't really describe myself as like an emotional painter. I'm not like, oh, I'm happy today, I'm gonna paint sunflowers. Or it's just, I don't know. It's almost like I'm not even myself anymore, just for like a little period. It's like I clock out of being myself and I'm just making something like a flow state.
A lot of artists, I mean, I feel this way with music too. Like a lot of people over history have described like just feeling like a radio beacon.
Yeah, like literally, sometimes. I mean, I'm not going to say it's some sort of like divine inspiration, like a muse comes down and touches me or something, but it's like, I mean, I think when I started painting, I wasn't making things for an emotional or some sort of like societal value. Like I wasn't like, oh, I need to do this as some sort of activism, like I want to make this image to say something. It was more just because I wanted to learn how to paint for the ability, and I would just make things that I would push my ability to the next kind of step. And I think now I have enough ability and practice that now I know I could paint like a water bottle. I know I could paint a perfect circle. Or like now I can use that to make something interesting.
It's a certain level of study that's required before you can really like be your full creative self.
Yeah.
Just because you need the technical ability.
I mean, even now there's so many things that I would love to be able to make and I know I can't.
What do you want-
I
what
would
do you
have to
wanna-
have like practice to
What
be
do you want
able
to
to
work
do
on?
it. Like even the epoxy sculpture that I'm making for the show, I've never used epoxy before, and of course there's all these resources, like I could study it and study it and study it, and I know, like be able to calculate the exothermic reaction to see how long it'll take to cure, but I've never actually done it.
Are there any kind like styles you want to try to get into that you haven't done besides the epoxy? That anything you're like it's been nagging at you to try?
Not really. I would like to do more murals.
Like large like walls.
Yeah,
Large,
like
like I know
really big
you did
walls,
something at like a head shop or something, right?
I did.
Like, yeah,
Yeah.
I saw that. We'll put that up.
It was cool. It was, I mean, murals are difficult because it's people's property and it's like they want to submit an idea. And I would really love to be able to make one of my own ideas at a scale like that, both as a technical challenge and just because I think it would look really cool. Like if I could make something huge that was just cool looking. You know?
Yeah.
But it's harder doing murals because unless you find somebody that's gracious enough to just be like, oh, paint whatever you want on the side of my business, you know. I don't think people have a lot of
Here's a
trust
wall. Yeah.
to do that. Like, you know. I can't tell you how many times I've dipped a paintbrush in my cup of coffee. Like just not like bloop, just thinking it was clean. Like bloop, and it's like, oh boy. I'm gonna have a problem with this face. You know how they say like in dreams, like you can't dream of people you never met or something, because like their faces, like your brain has to like have a face in mind to be doing.
Right. Yeah. I've heard that.
But I mean,
It does appear to be true. So you mentioned having a show coming up. Have you done much as far as gallery openings and shows, and what's kind of your experience with that, and what do you have coming up?
I mean, this is my first solo exhibition. Going to be at the Old Heidelberg, which is the hotel bar. It's downstairs. It's in the basement. It's a cool space. It's a funky space. It's a very really vintage, and it's definitely a non-traditional place to hold a gallery exhibition. But I love it. I love it. It fits with the theme of everything.
How much like into like the art world have you been, or are you, or as far as like like the fancy art shows and stuff, or is that kind of your vibe?
I mean, I haven't really been even keeping tabs on anything. It's been a wild year for me, man. I'm just
Yeah.
like, I would like to. I mean, in the future, I would like to be able to do booths at some sort of like big art fair, like Art Basel or something. But I don't keep tabs on people's careers or anything like. It's probably why I don't do sports or anything. I have no interest in other people's. I mean, I like to learn from it. Like, of course, I'd like to see like, and it's great to study from, like, see their career trajectories. But I don't have any like emotional interest in watching this stuff. Like, and I'm not fascinated by like, what's he gonna do next?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm kind of more interested in just pushing myself to see what I can make. If I can make something super crazy to impress myself, like, then being able to show that off and be like, look what I did for me.
It seems like from talking to you that you've had some commercial success. Not that that's the point. But
I mean, a little bit. I mean, I've done a handful of murals. The murals were like the big kind of commercial projects, where everything else is stuff that I've painted for myself and somebody had interest in. Like, I haven't really done very many commissions. I've done a couple commissions, but usually I have no interest in painting what they want me to paint. Like, I'm like, trust me, dude, you love your dog way more than I love your dog, so it's a problem. I don't want to paint it. I'm sorry.
would you turn down a commission because you didn't want to do it? Like,
Yeah, I do it all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't even mean to be rude by it, but
No, right.
like, unless you're commissioning something have interest in, I don't, you know. Like,
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It's like, you know what I mean? It's like, why would you?
I hate to be sound, but I want to make art, man. You know, we were talking about the whole graphic design thing and like designers, and I mean, I don't want to just make burner work that I'm not passionate about.
Right.
Because really, it is an investment of like passion and energy and.
And time. I mean, it's
yeah.
you must have 100 or more hours and hundreds of hours in these paintings. Some
Yeah.
of them.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's.
I
Like,
think the painting behind you, the one you could probably cut to it later.
Yeah.
That was probably 40 hours or plus, maybe 50 hours just on that one. And then if you look around the whole room, like some of them take so long. I think there's a painting over there of some silverware. And that was from a painting class. And the whole semester of the painting class was just that one painting. And it was like a 6-hour class. So go to school from like 7 to 1, just paint that every day. And it's such a small little thing, and it's like took so I can't. The amount of hours is innumerable.
Yeah.
And But it was also learning, you know, too. So it was like it took longer, and
But to spend that time on something you
yeah,
aren't passionate about,
I
then
mean,
it's not gonna
I
happen.
kind of go through my life thinking that all the time.
Yeah.
I'm like, I have so many things I could be doing right now. Like, why would I sit here and do something that I don't really see the value in doing? Or like, I got to pay my bills.
Right.
Like, if I like restaurants. I think if I won $100 million or something tomorrow, I mean, I wouldn't work in a restaurant. I think that's like the descriptor. But if I won $100 million tomorrow, I would still be making paintings, though. You know.
Yeah, it's I think that's probably good for a lot of people to reflect on.
Well, I think for me it comes in waves. Like I have both, where like I find, and I don't know, maybe I hyper focus on being productive for a while, and I hyper focus on having experiences for a while. And I think all the experiences that I've had have definitely, I mean, not only contributed, but they are the art that I make. Like if I didn't do the things that I've done and think the way that I think, I wouldn't think the ideas to make the thing that I've just made. Like,
Right. Exactly.
it's all about like the stimuli that I've gotten.
Yeah.
So I have like a sweet spot for when I'm productive. And if I'm like too fucked up and too like not having a good time, like not happy, healthy mentally, like I'm not creative at all. It's like I need just enough struggle, because if I'm too comfy too, then I'm like still not very creative. I think I get my best ideas in the middle ground, when some parts of my life suck and some parts are really good. And I'm like,
Right. There is this sort of myth of like the depressed artist, you know, like the heroin addicted musician who's like cranking out hits. And it's like the reality of the situation is that like that's hell, you know, and like hell is not conducive to creativity.
yeah.
But you're right.
I mean, I guess it can be depending on what kind of art you're gonna make.
I guess, yeah.
Like I've been super stressed lately, and now all my paintings are like black and black and abstracted and weird and wild and dark, but they're not like angry or sad paintings or anything. But now that I'm looking at them, I'm like, maybe that is translating what I felt.
But yeah, you definitely can like, kind of look back, you know, and be like, oh man, like, yeah, especially on your own work, if you make it, you look back, you're like, I see now why I did what I did then, you know.
I try to keep everything I make that doesn't sell, like isn't a piece of art. I do have like two things that I make really, and like some are either like practices and some are like actual pieces of art. And I don't know where I draw the line of what's different to what, but I try to keep all of it, even like the practices and pieces of art I don't even like. I mean, I painted over things, but it's cool to have like a track record.
Yeah.
And I mean, I could literally see how much I've grown just over the past 2 or 3 years versus where I am right now, and what I'm doing tomorrow will be totally different. And right about now is where I would stop and walk right the fuck away before I fuck it up, and just let it breathe for a minute. I'm really gonna have to look at a picture of a dude's face to figure out how I want this guy. Okay, $2 million, please.
Do you have any kind of like place you want to end up? Or, I mean, I know it feels almost like a stupid question as I say it, like, is there sort of just, it's just kind of like you want to make a living producing art, right? I mean,
yeah, I mean, really, my main interest is just in having a liberty to do what I want. So I don't really have a line of like, oh, I need to have this many $1 million and then I'll be happy. But like right now, say I wanted to make, like I do want to make like this, I have this sculpture in mind that I've never done before, and that's kind of what the epoxy resin is, a practice run for that. But it'd be like $8,000 of material for the sculpture, and I have this great idea and I'm inspired and I want to make it and I want to do it, but I can't because that's in the way. And I think I kind of define where I would be successful as like when I could just do whatever I want at any moment creatively, and then
not bound by the resources required to do. Right. You know, I feel like that too.
Like the resources of the space. Like if I want to get a warehouse and build a giant paper airplane that's like the size, like a 15-foot paper airplane, and just have people come look at it, like to be able to just do that would be
Yeah.
success.
Yeah.
Yeah, imagine like that's like if, right now if I could go rent an airplane hangar, build a paper airplane, send out some press releases, and boom, art. You know, I also totally wouldn't mind being anonymized, like using a pen name or something. I don't know if you knew this, but I have an alias that goes Banksy. I don't know if you've ever heard of it.
It pops up in the news once in a while.
Yeah,
That's you?
Yeah, that's me.
This
man.
is crazy, guys. You heard it here first. Yeah. So the whole notoriety part of it isn't really like.
I mean, I guess it's cool. There's a part of me that wants to be able to like walk into a restaurant and have everybody shut the fuck up and look at me like, yo, that's Brian Patrick. You know what I mean? Like, there's a little slice of me that thinks that's cool, but the rest of me is like, no. I like to go places where nobody knows me.
Yeah.
Half the time, and I would like to have places that I could go where people know me. It depends if I'm looking for friendship or if I'm looking to just go be off by myself.
Yeah. Do you have, so a lot of people I meet have more than one, like they kind of have a main pursuit and then like a still very serious side thing, like artists that I meet. Do you have anything else? Is there anything else that you're like interested in a pretty deep way?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, well, no, but yeah, I have diverse things I've liked. Like I am interested in music. I'm a shitty piano player. I can play like the saxophone and stuff, and like I have other things I'm interested in. I think the biggest way that I normally spend my free time is I like being outside a lot, in pretty places, like not just like a Walmart parking lot, but like going on hikes and climbing mountains and stuff that's probably my biggest interest. Like if I could maybe like hike some crazy trail for 7 days, I think that I would definitely commit myself to that. I never have, so I think that'd be cool.
Yeah, I think that's important. I've had songs that I finished just because I couldn't think of the last verse or whatever, and I would just hike and just listen to it. It's something about being outside is like a evolutionary, ingrained reset. You know what I mean?
I'm gonna go outside right now so I can relax and do this interview, but then come back.
But you know what? Because you are not yourself, you're just a reflection of what society wants you to do. Like a good worker, a good waiter, a challenger.
It's almost the same thing. Instead of putting, it's the same thing as